Hi, I'm Tanya Gurganius with New Hanover County Parks and Gardens and the Parks Conservancy of New Hanover County. We are excited for our upcoming tree planting on February 27th. We would like to thank the North Carolina Urban Forest Council for making this possible with their Legacy Tree Fund Grant and the Alliance for Cape Fear Trees for helping us out with volunteers. If you're volunteering for the event, please bring work gloves and a shovel if you have them to keep our volunteers and staff safe. We will be practicing social distancing, and all participants must wear face coverings and pre-registration is required. Thank you for taking the time to join us for our tree workshop. Today we're going to learn how to plant and care for trees. In this first clip, Park Superintendent Scott Childs is going to talk to us about choosing the right trees for your space.
Scott Childs. I'm the superintendent for New Hanover County Parks and Gardens. I'm here at beautiful Airlie Gardens to talk about some of the things you think about when you're going to plant a tree in your home landscape. Avoid going to the nursery, looking at trees hodgepodge and finding one you love just because the tag looks beautiful. There are many things to factor when you choose that tree. First of all, you want to make sure the tree is acceptable for our climate. We are a USDA Hardiness Zone 8, so try to make sure that the tree you're selecting is with that range. It's always best to try to get one that's got a little bit of wiggle room, something that's like a 5 through a 9. That way you know that if we have a hot dry season or a cold winter, there's a little bit of cushion on the high and low ends on that. Also, factor in what do you want the tree to do. Are you looking for a tree that's going to bring your house design into perspective, or are you looking for a shade tree? You also want to consider in that situation whether you want a deciduous or an evergreen tree. Deciduous trees are really good for providing summer shade, but in the winter allowing the sun to come through, so they'd be a really good choice for like the southern side of your house where they can give you some shade in the summer, but in the winter when they lose their leaves they would allow the sun to heat your house. When you're choosing a size for your house, try to make sure you get a scale that is in relationship to the house. Usually something that's a tree that's 1.5 to 2 times the height of your house will complement the house size really well. One more important point about when you choose a tree, make sure you're making the selection based on the tree's mature size. You do not want to plant a tree that's going to get 50 feet tall by 50 feet wide, 10, 15 feet from your house. Not only will it be constantly having to prune the branches and it'll lose a lot of its natural beauty in that process, but it also could damage your foundation, damage your siding, and you'll also have to clean your gutters more often. So now that you know kind of what you're looking for in the tree, 2 things you need to be concerned about when choosing the perfect tree for that location. Is the site dry? Is it wet? That's very important because trees that prefer wet conditions will have to be constantly watered in the summertime when it's drier, and trees that prefer dry conditions, you will be dealing with potential root rot issues. You also want to make sure the tree is receiving the right amount of sunlight. Some trees are understory trees and prefer dappled shade, while some prefer full sunlight. Some can handle a little bit of both. So make sure that you are choosing the right tree for the site conditions.
Why is a native plant better to put in this area?
Native trees are naturally acclimated to our climate and our conditions down here in coastal North Carolina. The natives they're part of the ecosystem, so they're going to be more beneficial to wildlife in general, the pollinators and the mammals. They've developed their place in that ecosystem around the food that the plants around them are providing. So using plants that are in that ecosystem naturally allows you to have more diversity with your songbirds, your pollinators, your mammals, which really helps you bring nature to your yard. And in our suburban environment, having a little bit of nature is nice. You just don't want the raccoons coming knocking over your trash cans. In your landscape, you also want to be diverse in the plants you choose. This is with trees as well. If everyone starts planting similar trees on a small palette of plants, you end up having a monoculture, and when you do have a disease run the local area, it goes through and devastates the whole landscape. Having single species in a limited number and spaced out throughout the area helps prevent that disease from jumping so readily from tree to tree to tree to tree. So when you plant a new tree, you want to make sure that you are not adding fertilizer or compost to the soil you're backfilling with. Trees have much more extensive root systems than a shrub or annual or perennial will have. You want that tree spreading them roots out and going out far into the native soil to gain those nutrients and moisture. If you add fertilizer when you're planting the tree will have all that fertilizer close and will tend to not spread those roots because it has a ready source right there. With shrubs, it's a little different. I mean, shrubs don't have that extensive root system, so give them a little bit of compost in the root ball helps them out.
Thank you, Scott. That was great information. Now that you know how to choose the right trees, Harry, Aaron, and Jarrell are going to demonstrate the correct way to plant them.
Harry Shaw with New Hanover County Parks and Gardens. This is Aaron and Jarrell with New Hanover County Parks and Gardens. They work here at Longleaf Park. Today we're just going to go over a few short steps on how to plant a tree correctly. So with the tree, you always want to start by assessing the area. You want to make sure that you don't have any overhangs or power lines or structure with the type of tree you're growing. So what you're going to want to do is measure the pot that your tree comes in, and you always want to dig your hole 2 to 3 times wider than the actual tree, and the depth, you want to dig it just deep enough where the crown of the tree, which is right here where the root ball kind of meets the tree trunk, you want to have that basically at ground level or just slightly above the level of the ground. We've already pre-dug the hole here, so we'll go ahead and get started and put the tree in. You guys want to? A good way to kind of see where you are as far as the height of the planting, you can always take a shovel and kind of lay it across. And if it seems pretty flat, then you should be pretty good. So we could probably, yeah, I think we should be good right there. What do you guys think? Maybe dig out a little bit right here.
That or because it's just around the height above.
Okay.
Level.
Yep. All right. Yeah, so we're good to go. So we're going to go ahead and backfill the dirt that we dug out back into the hole. It's always good to have somebody to kind of stand and watch, make sure you got it straight and even. And also another thing to think about too when planting trees, when you bring them out of the pots, sometimes you can see the roots, they're kind of growing in a circular motion around the root ball. And if that's occurring, you can always just take a pocket knife, and at the bottom of the root ball, you take a knife and make an X across it to kind of cut it up and loosen up, and then you take a knife and go 4 slices down each side of the root ball. And then you just kind of do what Jarrell is doing here, just kind of loosen it up, and that way it gives the roots plenty of room to kind of grow out, and you won't have any health issues later down the road. You're backfilling the hole that you previously dug. It's always a good idea to kind of like firmly pack the soil down, but you don't want to go too hard because you don't want too much compaction, because that'll kind of prevent the water from seeping in well to the roots and getting it saturated when it rains or when you're watering. Just a light stomping around. You want to press it down, but not too much. You kind of want to step back, take a look at the tree, make sure you're straight before you start packing it down too much. And also, after you kind of fill it back in, you're going to want to create what we call a water well, which is basically you just want to take a mound about 3 or 4 inches out from the tree, about 1 foot out, and then you just take a circular water well. So that way it kind of holds the water in when it rains, and you don't lose any water from watering the tree. And when doing so, you always want to make sure you keep dirt off of the crown of the tree here.
If you mulch, should you mulch all the way up to the crown of the tree?
If you do use mulch after you get the tree in the ground and get the soil the way you want it and get the water well, you want to do 2 to 3 inches of mulch, but you want to keep it away from the tree as much as possible. So if you're going to mulch this area, you just put it right along, like maybe ½ an inch from the base of the tree. If you have too much mulch on the trunk of the tree, it can cause fungus and suffocation of the tree and cause diseases later on down the road.
This one just a tad bit. Push it forward a little more.
So as you can see how we're kind of just taking the soil with our hands and just kind of mounding it up into a little mound around the tree, and that'll help keep water in place for when it rains and we do the watering. Once you get the tree in, you do want to water it as soon as possible. I'd say a tree this size, you probably want to saturate it for probably a good 5 minutes, because what it does is there's air pockets in the soil, and when you water it, it kind of alleviates that problem with the air pockets and gets the soil nice and in place. Also, another thing is what we do here in the county parks with new trees is we have these water bags. They're also called gator bags, and you fill them up with water and you just simply put them around the tree, and the water will seep through that material and water it gradually. So then all you gotta do is just check on the bag and make sure it's full of water as you go along. When you're done putting the tree in the ground and getting everything set, is you want to kind of take a look and make sure you remove any tags that may have been put on at the nursery you bought it from. A lot of times these get left on, and what it do is the tree will actually grow around it, and it'll cause problems down the road, and it could cause potential diseases down the road. So yeah, we just got done looking over, we got everything removed, so we're looking good and we're all set.
Thanks, guys. And now we'll go back to Scott for some good tips on caring for our newly planted trees.
The first year, 18 months of planting, you'll want to make sure you keep the tree watered. And it's more obviously an issue during the summer when it's hot and dry and the tree is transpiring really rapidly. At the same time, you don't want to overwater the tree. You want the tree to have to start developing a healthy root system to get that moisture. So I like using water bags, fill them once, twice a week, depending on the conditions, and letting the tree go through phases where the soil dries out a little bit, never getting totally dry. And usually I found that within 12 to 18 months, the tree, the water bags can be removed and the tree will be on its own and be able to grow naturally.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you learned something new. For more information regarding trees, volunteer tree plantings, and more, visit our website at parks.nhcgov.com/trees.